Basically, when you actually want to deal with Talend, actually there are some questions comes into picture or into mind. Why do I need to learn Talend? Okay, there are few challenges that Talend can answer, and Talend only can answer when it comes to the real-time world. The first one is corporate data grows in volume and variety. Since you are already aware of big data, you might be knowing like how much data we are capturing at the source system. Okay, why are we capturing lots of as you know that no, the source side we are capturing lots and lots of information. Why? Because of the reason that we want to show at the end in the report we want to show lots of data in a summarized format. Because I'm doing a business and I want to know the trends of my business in various aspects. So in order to show the reports in those various aspects, you need to capture lots of source data or lots of data in the source system so that you can provide such report to the business or end user. So whatever the data that is growing in the source system in terms of volume and variety, the data processing can be faster when you are actually working with Talend. So Talend will give you the flexibility of faster processing of the data irrespective of the growth in terms of volume and variety at the source system. That is the first challenge, and that is how the Talend answers that question, that challenge. And the next two things are, ETL solutions development, can be long and complex support in-house, in-house development. And multiple projects usually result in a difficult to maintain patchwork. So which means, let's suppose you are a developer on some other tool and I have given you one logic to implement or one requirement to implement. So there are the tools where the complex logic need to be implemented at a single place or a single component level. Okay, you will develop that logic because of your expertise, technical knowledge, and you will make sure the job is running fine. Now you resign and the company and some other guy has come and he has to make the changes to that code. What happens is it will take a lot of time for him to understand. That is the first thing, because of its complex nature. Second thing is that he has to do the impact analysis on what will happen if I make change at this place in the code or at that place in the code. Which means the complex coding will result in some abnormalities or some issues, unnecessary issues if you are going to do any kind of patchwork. So now how Talend will answer this question, answer this challenge. Talend has a flexibility of splitting the code into sub-codes and developing them in sub-jobs and then linking them together. So which will, as a whole, will appear as a single code, but it's not complex. And whenever somebody want to make change or somebody want to understand the code, it is easy because it has been split in sub-codes, sub-logics, and then they are tied together. That is the best benefit we will get out of Talend. So complex logic can be implemented using the numerous number of components available in Talend, and whatever the changes that we want to do or whatever the patchwork that we want to do to the existing code can be easily done without any worries. And the last point is data integration platforms are nowadays really expensive. Basically, when you go to Informatica or Data Stage or other enterprise versions, they are really expensive. But I don't say that Talend is not expensive, but Talend is comparatively less expensive. Okay, so with the money that you are spending, to buy the Informatica license, you can spend 40 or 50% of it and get one Talend license. That is how the the benefit that Talend is having in terms of the investment as well. So coming to the next one, that is about why Talend, and this is what is Talend. Okay, Talend is basically an open source data integration systems leading developer. Okay, so far it's number one in the market in terms of integration platform. It can be used for the ETL and as well as for the data integration. Data integration is nothing but you have the data in one environment and you want to move the data into other environment. In between, you will make some transformations, calculations, logics, aggregations, summaries, whatever. That is the integration. And the ETL comes, when it comes to the ETL, you will extract the data from the source system, you will do the transformations, and you will load into a target where the tables are logically linked together. In the data integration, you will load the data into whatever the target that is been given. But in the data warehousing, you will load the data into target in which the tables are organized and linked together for some purpose. Okay. And Talend is having one advantage of unified repository for storing and reusing the metadata, which means you have to load the data. In as an example, you have to load the data into a table in some 15 to 20 places in your job, in your big job. Then what will happen is you have to define the schema everywhere. I'll let you know what, when actually jump into the classes, I'll show you what is the schema and metadata. So what happens is you may have to define the schema every time in those 20 places. Instead of that, you will create one schema and keep it aside in the repository and make use of it whenever you need to use it. So that is where you store the metadata, schemas, and all the information, which we call it as a unified repository. And the broadest data connectivity support for any data integration platform, which means Talend will support a lot of source systems to extract the data from. You say like I have data in my Oracle system. Yes, I can extract it using Talend. I have data in SAP. Yes, I can extract using Talend. If it is a CSV file or a text file or Excel sheet or Postgres, Cassandra, everything for lots and lots and lots of source systems, we have the connectivity support, or we can extract the data using Talend. So Talend is founded in 2005. Diad and Bonan are the guys who wrote this. Talend's background is Java, okay, which means Talend is developed using Java code. But it doesn't mean that you need to know Java. Okay, I don't know Java, to be frank. So if you know Java, it's good. If you don't know Java, that's also good. So learning Talend doesn't really require Java. So you just need to know one or two statements. How to print a statement, how to define a variable, that's it. Other than that, you don't need to know anything on Java. So these guys found in 2005, and they introduced their first product in 2006, and from there onwards it doesn't require to look back. It's going like anything, and they have Talend is offering the products like this. This is the Talend unified platform under which you have data quality as a product, data integration, MDM, ESB, BPM, and big data. This is a little old slide. So for big data, and these are the offerings that you will get when you go for the licensed version. So Talend is having two types of offerings. One is Talend Open Studio, which we call as TOS. And another one is Talend Integration Suite, which we call as TIS. The first one is free, and the second one is you need to buy some, pay some money and get the license. So I just opened a notepad and I'll give some differences between Talend Open Studio and Talend Integration Suite, which is enterprise version. So for this one, you just need to log into talend.com site and download the product, whatever you want, and download the product. So this is an open source product. If you go for the Talend, what do you say? Yeah, integration suite, which is a licensed version. You just need to approach Talend company, and pay money and get the software. Am I clear, Kavi Kumar? Any questions?
Yeah, fine, okay. I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah. So Talend.com.
I think in Talend open source, we are not able to find all the components, right? Some components are missing.
Exactly. That's what I'm going to tell you in other differences. Yeah,
okay.
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. So Talend Open Studio doesn't have any client server architecture. Okay. which means your desktop or laptop is going to be the server and client. You'll install on your desktop and you'll make use of it. And here it is client-server architecture. We have client-server architecture, which means you will install the software, okay, Talend software in one server. You will install in one server, and you will be having the executable or exe file, which is the studio file, to use it on your desktop. Now when you are buying the license, you will tell them that I am having 5 developers in my team and I want 5 EXEs. Okay, depends on how much money you are paying and how you are getting the license. And Kavi, as you rightly said, components are comparatively less. I don't say less; it is comparatively less when dealing. Here in integration suite you have comparatively high components, comparatively more components, I can say. Yeah? Because it's very simple. Okay, for any business to grow, you just need to earn some money. Okay, when you want to earn some money, you need to show the difference between Open Studio and the integration suite. That's why they are putting only some components in integration suite only. Earlier, I remember in Talend 5.4, 5.6 and all, they were having SAP components in Open Studio, but in the 6.0 version onwards, they have made those components only available to the enterprise version. So now what happens is you may be using Talend Open Studio for years, and now you have to go for a license because if you want to make use of some of the other advantages of the product. So that is everywhere. Okay. And here job scheduling is not possible. Okay, job scheduling is not possible, which means you can't run the jobs at a specified time. I mean, you can't let the system to run on its own. But here job scheduling is possible, which means I can schedule a job to run at 11 p.m. in the night on a particular day. So that scheduling is possible, and here we will be getting some Talend administration console. Here it is single user, which means when you are downloaded the software on your desktop or a laptop, you will be the guy only using it. No other person will have the access for that. And it's a single project also, which means you can work only with one project at a time. But here it is multiple users. Okay, I can create multiple users based on the licenses, and I can create multiple projects based on my requirements, and I can control the access or authorizations to the people. Like Kavikumar will be handling one project. For that project, he will be having the read-write access. For the rest of the projects, you don't need to have the access. But for one of the projects, you need to have the read access only. Now, what happens is, for a project where Kavikumar is having the read access, I will be having the read-write access. So Kavikumar can open the project, and I can also open the same project. But he can't edit anything, and I can do the changes. Which means, one project can be, operated by or can be accessed by multiple users. And here, we don't have any repository. Your desktop will store all the jobs information that you develop. But here we are having centralized repository, which we can make use of it. Which is like it's a Visual SVN is one. It's a repository subversion system where we can maintain the history and track of the jobs. Okay, or you have Tortoise SVN. Tortoise SVN is another one. You can make use of it. So these are all the differences. Any questions, Kavikumar?
Yeah, no, I'm clear.
Okay, now let's jump into the Talend architecture. So this is the Talend architecture. Okay, this architecture is Talend's enterprise versions architecture. So, like I said, it is a client-server architecture where the bottom screen is server side, and this is the client side. Now I will tell you a simple process. Before actually understanding this architecture, I will tell you the process of doing the installation. So once your company will pay the money to Talend, and Talend will give you some executables. So Talend administrator will be there in the company. This Talend administrator, he will install all the software. When I say that you will get the exe files from the Talend company, which means you'll be getting the sub products. Which means Talend, see, so if it is Open Studio, will simply have one studio executable. But if it is a licensed version, you will be having multiple executables, like command line server and job server, activity monitoring console, studio. These are all the executables. You need to install all of them one by one. Okay, so these are the subtypes. So Talend administrator will install the software according to the order, accordingly to the order that they mentioned. And then what he will do is he will create two users. This second is the example. One is Govardhan and another one is Kavikumar. So administrator will create two users, and this admin guy will send you an email to you and me separately. Govardhan, this is your username and password. Okay, Kavikumar, this is your username and password. And also I have one executable.exe, which is the studio. You just download it from one path, and when you open it for the first time, it will ask you one username and password. So please give this username and password there, so it will open the studio for you. And before sending an email and before creating the users, you will create two projects. Govardhan will be working on a project called ABC, and Kavikumar will be working on a project called XYZ. So he will create the projects and he will give the access to us. So when you open the project for the first time, you need to give the username and password. Once you give the username and password, then it will open the project for which you have the access. Now you may ask me one question: what if I have multiple projects, access to multiple projects? Then you will be seeing a window where you have the option of selecting what project you actually want to log into. So that is how you will log into the studio. Now let's go back to this. So these are all the installation side where administrator will take care. Okay? He will give you this executable, which is studio, Talend Integration Suite Studio. So he will tell you, give the username and password when it asks you. Then you will give the username and password. So when you give the username and password, then it will go to this command line server to check the authorization, whether Govardhan and Kavikumar are really the genuine users or these guys have the access or not. That can be checked here. Okay, once this command line server feels that okay, these guys have the access, it will open you the studio. Now you start doing some coding, you start doing some development, and you save it. So when you save it, that work will be saved in a SVN repository, because your studio is linked to that SVN repository. So when you have the access of reading and writing to a project, then whatever the work that you do on the project or whatever the development that you do on the project will be saved to the SVN repository. So basically SVN subversion, which is SVN means subversion. SVN repository is used to store the project metadata, which means what are the jobs created, what are the components being used, and how they are linked, and what is the logic written in it. All this data will be stored in the SVN repository. Now, when I say that the client the administrator has installed the software, okay, then he will do the configuration also. Okay. The configuration of the software means, configuration is nothing but, like I said, he'll be getting the subproducts of a whole software. He has to introduce them to each other. Hey, my name is command line server, and my name is SVN server, my name is job server. He has to introduce all of them so that if those subproducts works together, then it will make the Talend software. Okay. So that configuration will be done in a web browser. Now you may ask me one question: how does you do in the web browser? What is the URL? So once you install the software, you need to type this thing in the browser as an URL. This is the server name, http://server name. The server name is in which you have installed the software. :8080, that is the port using which the communication will happen through Talend to the outside world. /AMC. This is activity monitoring console, which will be actually monitoring at all the activities that are happening around the Talend software activities. So when you type this one in the browser, you will get it will ask username and password. So the default username is company.com, admin@company.com, and password is admin. So this is what he typed in the administrator will type in the chat browser, and he will be logged into administration console, which is called TAC, Talend Administration Console, where he will configure the details of all these things. SVN server, which server it is installed, what is the port, what is the host, what is the username, what is the password. Next, DB, what is the username, password, port, and all. The execution server, what is the username, port, host, password, and all. So when he saved the information there, then that information will be accessed by this administration center or command line server, which will actually track of the activities that are happening. So web browser is a place where we will give all the administrative related information.
Let me correct you, brother. Actually, web browser means actually it has some UI in web browser. Go to the web browser. I'm able to see the health monitoring and what are the jobs running on that Talend. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes, that is what the web browser means actually. You can say Talend Administration Console, where you can schedule the jobs, create the users, create the projects, and assign the authorizations to the projects and all. Okay.
Yes.
And when you are doing the development also, you wanna execute the jobs and run it. So that is what this link is given. And we have two things here: execution server, which is nothing but a job server, which means, like I was saying, in the Talend enterprise version, you will be having an option of scheduling the jobs and running at a particular time. So Talend execution server will take care of, this is one of the sub-products which will take care of the executions which are scheduled to run at some particular point of time. And Talend will come with an internal database, which is H2 database. Okay, that H2 database is used to store the administrator related metadata, which means how many users are created in the web browser, which is nothing but Talend Administration Console, and how many projects are created, how many jobs are scheduled, what is the execution time, and how they are executing, and what are the monitoring logs, and all that administrator metadata will be saved in the H2 database. Okay, and you can configure this one to any of the other databases as well if you don't want to use the default database. So this is the architecture. This is a client server architecture where each and every component is doing its job, so that making Talend as a fully functioning software. Is this clear, Kavi Kumar?
Yeah, fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
coming to course content like basics and enterprise administration, where basics we will discuss only about the studio, nothing about the other things, monitoring and all. This is like simply studio, where you will work with the development, what are the components used for the development and all. And then the enterprise version, it's like you'll be dealing with the components plus doing some kind of monitoring works, like how to schedule the jobs, how to create the users in the administration side now. And at the enterprise administration is nothing but only installation of the software Talend. We don't speak anything about the development or components used to development here. This is just the administration part. And once you finish the course, then these are the things that you will be capable of doing. How do we start studio? How do we create the job to read the data from the inputs, and how do we transform? Okay, so how do we add the constraints, replicating the outputs, joins and join failures, and the context variables, and a little bit of on the business models, and how do we work with the databases, and what are the web services that we can deal with and all. And then enterprise version is like, in addition to what I spoke about, we'll be seeing these things like how do you connect to a repository and job activity monitoring, and how do you run the job remotely, SVN branches, parallel execution. And the administration side is just the installation and how do we manage the projects, what is the job conductor, what is the activity monitoring console, and what is the command line. Okay. Any questions, Kevin?
Yeah, no, I have one note. Actually, as you said, it is working on large amount of data, right? So means it has any database or just it is a processing model by connecting to any database server like Hadoop or something. So just we are processing here or we are holding any data in Talend?
See, Talend will just process the data, which means, see, I have a source. I'll tell you a simple example. Okay, you cooked some food, okay? You cooked rice, you cooked sambar. Okay, now that is the source where you have two data. One is rice and another sambar. Okay, now you wanna eat that. You wanna eat that into your stomach. Means your stomach is the target. Okay, now how do you eat? You can't eat rice separately and sambar separately, right? You will put them in a plate. You will mix them with your hand and you will eat them with your hand and you will chew in your mouth and it will go into your stomach. Now, mixing them and taking them and eating them is the integration. You are integrating the data, okay, from the cooked vessel to your stomach. Okay, so your hand and your mouth is the integration. Your hand and your mouth is the integration. Of course, I am storing the data, but temporarily.
Okay.
Because I am holding the rice in my hand and I am taking in my mouth and I keep it in hand and mouth for a few seconds. Which means I will be storing the data temporarily while integrating as and when required. But when I am drinking water, right, I can't keep the water in the hand. From bottle directly to stomach. I'm not holding the water in my hand. That is another scenario of the integration, you know. So basically what I mean to say is there may be some chances where you store the data temporarily in the integration area. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
At the time of dealing with terabytes of data, at least for processing purpose also, while processing it has any local storage, means while processing it stores the data in somewhere or it's only processing.
I'll tell you. Let us suppose you're trying to load the data into an Oracle database, okay? So
Yes,
Oracle database, you will take T-Oracle output component to store the data. I mean to load the data into the target table. Now, if you see that you are expecting large data volumes, then for the same T-Oracle output, you have bulk components. Okay, there's T-Oracle output bulk. That is a component which is used to load the data, load the huge volume of data into the database, because those components are capable of dealing the large volume of data. Or there is another flexibility which I love this one, you know. When you are getting the data from a source, which is a huge data, you will just keep a copy of CSV file in your local, okay? And from that file, you try to process the data, you know, which will actually give you a flexibility of, you know, let us suppose you established a connection with the source system and you are trying to load 10,000 records or 1,000 records per batch. What if the connectivity you know, problem occurs with the source system? Then gone, right? You will not be loading the complete data. So instead of that, we'll establish the connection and we will get all the data into a CSV file. From that CSV file, we will load the data into the target. This will give us the flexibility in two ways. The first way is, if there is any error while extracting, we can check in the CSV file. If there is any error while loading, we will check in the CSV file. What is the error? What is the column is having value or not?
Yeah, it is applicable for even transformations also, doing any transformation or filtering.
Well, when you are dealing with the transformations, right, you will definitely not store the data in the transformation component. Okay? But Talend will give you one flexibility of you know, storing the data in the hard disk temporarily while processing itself.
Okay.
Which means you will store the data in the hard disk. There is a component called TMAP, okay? where you have the flexibility of storing the data in the hard disk, store it, then one process it, delete the file.